Welcome to Off Topic but On Point. I'm Odette Beer, and here we embrace the unscripted, the unconventional, and dare I say it, the unexpected. Because sometimes the best breakthroughs happen when you go off topic. Each episode, we dive into business, leadership, and life, exploring the moments that challenge us, shape us, and push us forward. So, whether we're tackling entrepreneurship, collaboration, mindset, or even navigating resistance, one thing's for sure, we'll always bring it back to what matters. So get ready for candid perspectives, thoughtful insights that will keep you engaged, inspired, and maybe a little bit uncomfortable in the best possible way. As usual, I have with me my beautiful friends, Dr. Janine de Cabo, also known as the Intentionalist, and Pastor Christo Pretorius, the Expander. Let's go.
G'day and welcome to Off Topic but On Point with myself, Dr. Janine and Odette. We're looking forward to some good conversation as always. And I was thinking in the year 2000, and I'm giving away my age, in the year 2000, I was in matric in high school and I had a diary. Well, everybody in school had a diary. The school issued us this diary that you had to use to write in homework and, important things for school. But my diary was empty. Except the very last page. And I still have the diary, it's just somewhere in storage. But the very last page, I remember I wrote down all these principles that just stood out for me. Now, I don't know if any of you that are listening, or even Dr. Janine Odette, will remember that there was a brand that was sold by Mr. Price when Mr. Price just came out. It was called Powerhouse. So it was this dog, this very fris, well-built dog, and it was power and in the dog and house. That was the logo. And so what was interesting about that brand is it came out with this clothing range that had all these quotes on the front. And I mean, most of the quotes was just quotes about dogs because it's, this dog is the brand. But there was two quotes that really stood out for me. The one was that if you're not the leading dog in the fight, the view is always the same. If you're not the leading dogs, the view is always the same. And being at school, and obviously there were so many kids, walking break time and before school. And I would always picture that is that if I'm not in front, the view is always going to be the same. You're always going to see somebody that is in front of you, and you're not going to even know how far you are to your destination. And then another one that's quite famous is that it's not the size of the dog in the fight, but it's the size of the fight in the dog. And so those quotes that was on the shirts that we bought, and yes, we bought from Mr. Price way back then. And I started writing down those principles because it was just good. And then I started noticing in the class, there were principles on the wall. There was a principal, at school, but there were principles on the wall. And I would just start jotting down all these principles that maybe just stood out for me, And as I was reading through Sports Illustrator and, these magazines, health and fitness things, I would write down all of these quotes. And so I had like this whole book at the end of the year that was filled with all of these quotes. And I think it really started the journey for me on having something that you anchor and you move towards, principles, guiding principles and thoughts that leads you and helps you. And so I want to pose the question today, and I want to start the discussion by asking you, is there like a founding principle or a quote that you've heard that really resonates with you, but not just once, but it's something that you carry throughout your life? People tend to ask us like, what's the greatest piece of advice that somebody has ever given you? And for me, it's a difficult question to answer because on what front? In marriage, in business, in life, in relationship, in sport, it's actually vague, and I understand what they're saying. And so I don't want to do the same, but yeah, if there's maybe just one thing, like throughout life, throughout any industry, throughout any aspect of life, like what's just one thing that really just stood out for you when it comes to a principle or even a quote? We'll start with Dr. Janine in the middle of my screen.
I'm glad you said let's start the conversation, because if you do what we do, just to have one quote is just totally impossible. So let's start the conversation. If I have to think about one a long time ago, I think of it, it's actually a scripture where we have to, and I remember it more in Afrikaans than English. So if I quote it wrong in English, then I'm sorry. But it's look at the ant and look how he works. That is what it is about. It's like that for me was something when I was a little girl that my grandmother used to always speak to me about, and like, do your best at school, do this, look at the ant. He gathers ahead of time. He's prepared. He's always on time. There's structure. That's the kind of stuff that I just took from that little scripture when I was a little girl. Later on in my life, it was the phrase that I've spoken about a lot, that you're never fully dressed without a smile. And again, it's how you show up to something, how you show up to a challenge, a meeting, a situation, your day, your own day. And then I think the one that's resonating with me a lot now because of what I'm busy doing is that what you do next matters, and it will echo in the hallways of eternity. Because I think I've also throughout the years learned that we are growing, we are moving. We don't just have this goal mindset, but we have a growth mindset. And my mindset is absolutely eternal. So what I'm doing, I'm not just doing it for now, but I'm doing it for eternity.
Yeah, that's quite powerful. I mean, that last one really hits home. It really brings perspective in the area of like what we're doing today. Like, does it really matter? I know it matters now, but does it matter in a year, in 10 years, and will it matter in eternity? And so that is absolutely, something that hit home. I want us to, and like you said, we're starting the conversation. So I'm going to go back and forth the whole time. We'll probably just spend time on these, couple of principles, because I really want to delve into not just the principle, but also, a little bit behind, the setting of the principle. But let me not say too much. Odette, I really want to hear from you, because I mean, you're like a principle machine. You can give us, a couple of books just on that. So like quotes, principles,
It's
even
really funny for us
scriptures.
to see you've
What
got
would
a
you say are
book
some guide?
with principles that you started way back in 2000. Um, I remember very little of when I was little. So as for my teenage years and my young person years, I'm just now a more mature person. I'm still a young person, by the way. I was busy with all kinds of things. I was productive. So I didn't necessarily write things down, pay attention to things. But there was something my dad always said when I was little, and I think he probably still says that I have no idea. But he would say, your attitude determines your altitude. And I could like see his face and his posture just saying that. And I hated that as a child. But it is unfortunately so true. And like if I used to go into things and I get a little bit icky about something, or maybe I don't have the best perspective on this, it would echo in my mind. And like you, Dr. J, there's two scriptures that stood out for me. The first I came across was to see, actually you had it on somewhere. I at the time didn't know the scripture even existed, to be honest. And it was Psalms 138 verse 8. You will perfect that which concerns me. And when I saw that, it like, man, it hit me in my heart, because I I think I shared with you guys a story when I was in my early 20s, very confident and very arrogant. I said to somebody, I was destined for greatness. And I didn't say it in like the whole arrogant way, but I said it with the conviction of like there's more. There's more. I don't know what it is. And I don't know how I'm going to get it out, because right now I'm a nobody, and like I'm just honored to be here. But I felt like there's more. And that scripture kind of just brought me to, it's okay. I have an insane drive, and God will perfect that which concerns me. And the more I grow in the Lord and the more I continue on my journey, the more Psalms 31 verse 50 speaks to me, which says, my times are in his hand. So like there will be a time for all of these things. And the younger me fought vehemently to be recognized, to be seen, to be acknowledged. Just acknowledge my existence. You don't have to bow down before me. I don't care about those things. You don't even have to give me a title. That was my thing when I was young. Don't give me a title, pay me. I don't care. But at the very least, like acknowledge me. Call me Tigo, but just pay me. That's fine. And I'm now at the point where I realize that my plans are in his hands. God raises and he exalts and destroys. So I don't have to fight.
Yeah, so funny that she says she never had time to write things down and she doesn't really have principles from her youth. But I mean, I already wrote down 4. You don't have to give me a title, just pay me. Like, oh yeah, that's good. Destined for greatness. There goes my chair. Destined for greatness. There is more. And I think that's such a nice framing, and I maybe want to pick up from that. Is isn't that what principles does? It shows us that there is more. There is more potential within us. But not just there is more potential, but there is more to our world than what meets the eye. And I wanna take it this route is, I mean, I only met you, let's say 2004, 2005. So that's like half my year of my life was already lived when I met you. Yet, my dad also said, your altitude or your attitude will determine your altitude. So either your dad or my dad, knew each other. But I'm sure if I'm going to ask Dr. Janine if she ever heard that from her parents or from somebody in her life at a young age, she's probably going to say the same. And here's the beauty about principles, is principles are universal. Principles are universal because you can use it in any sector of life, I believe. All right, we can use it in any sector of life. And so if I say that, if you're not the leading dog in a race, the view is always the same. You can take that for business. If you're not going to get in front of the competition, you're always going to have the same view. But I can also relate that to sport. If you're just going to be, at the back end, you're never going to lead. You're never going to see new territories. But we can also translate that, into church. We can translate that into marriage, because the principle is universal. If you say that you never fully dress without a smile, that's a great slogan for a billboard. But it's also a very good principle that when you pick up your kids from school, like, you don't want to show them that you had a tough day and you are nasty and you're whatever the case might be. You want to show up. And so you show up in your family, you show up at church, you show up with clients. If you walk to a client or meeting and, you have what's that thing that Odette always says, something grumpy face. If you,
Resting
if you
grumpy
have that
face.
grumpy face, that grumpy look, resting grumpy face, there you go. And so just that principle, you never fully dress without a smile, is universal because you can transcend it throughout any industry. And I think that's the beauty of principles. The other beauty of principles that I believe what's universal is because on one end of the world, or one end of Joburg, in Alberton, or wherever Odette was that you grew up, your dad taught you that principle. And here my dad in Pretoria and then in Boksburg taught me the same principle. It's like they've never met. So somewhere, somebody said that. And what really put me on this trend of looking into principles in my life is because of the following. Exactly that thing is, I started noticing that in my life now, this was about 10 years ago, in my life 10 years ago, prominent people and, like people at church and, pastors and leaders that were coming and ministering there, but also people that I follow, like the John Maxwell's of the world, the Richard Bransons at the time, Elon Musk, when you start reading and listening to some of them, they were sharing principles that I heard my dad taught me. And one of the remarkable ones was, I heard this pastor, Dr. Rob Thompson from America, he said that friends are like the buttons in an elevator that either take you up or they'll take you down. And when he said that, I'm like, this is incredible stuff. Like, wow. And a couple of days or weeks went past, and then I realized, wait, that was the last words my dad told me before he gave me like a hiding. And he said to me, Christy, your friends are either going to take you up or they're going to take you down. Rather you take them up. And then I started realizing there's so many principles that I live with that has been a part of my life for so many years. And it gave me confidence in who I am and what I do, because I realized that at least there's some form of stability and there's some form of history, track record. And so I started diving more and more and more into these things. And it's so fascinating whenever I speak to people, and especially like Odette, the one you've given, is I can resonate with that. So my next question would probably be is, Dr. Janine, you mentioned that your grandmother, gave you the scripture and spoke to you about, how you show up, look at the ant, slug it, you see how he works. What would you say are some other things that your grandmother taught you that, thinking back now, taking some time and just quickly thinking, resonates with you, and you realize, oh wow, she taught me more than just the word, or she just taught me more than just, how to show up. Is there any other things that stands out for you?
What's beautiful is not that I didn't read the word. I just think I mean, the time she really, really imparted into me was when I stayed with her when my sister was receiving chemo, and it was through that stage. I was little, so I didn't read the Bible myself. It was what she was reading. And what I realized as I grew older, I'm like, most of the things she said literally just came straight from the Bible. Like, she would tell me stuff like, you have to treat others the same way you want to be treated. And then I would be old and this is where she got it, And I'd be so surprised. I was like, yo, that was so good.
That's
And so I picked up a lot of things like that. And she would always say to me, you are so special. You were formed in your mother's womb. You were like knitted together. I'm like, I see this whole picture and I'm like, man, I'm so special. I'm like, everybody gets that scripture.
that,
Not just on me. But I picked up a lot of things like that throughout my life that she taught me.
that
That was biblical principles.
Mhm.
And when I go through things, then that is what I fall back onto. There's a lot of the times, I mean, that we've spoken about it before. She would used to say to me, "Ach man, dis is so erg nie. We win." And I've spoken about that. Like, we win. It's not as bad as what you make it out to be. You're going to be just fine. We win. And now I understand much later on, okay, that's what she means. She read to the end of the Bible and we win. So there was many a times where in my life where things happened and I'm like, oh, my grandma said this. And then I'm like, oh, this is where she got it. Yes, she was just giving me word. I didn't even realize it at the time, but she was like that. She was a principle person, but her
that-
principles was based on the word. So every day, like, if I read, sometimes still, I read scriptures, I'm like, man, how did I
wow.
miss this for so long? How did I miss this for so long? She loved Isaiah. Isaiah 43 was her favorite scripture. And she used to literally speak that over my life all the time. So there's just, yeah, my life is built on principle. I can honestly say that, and built on the word of God and the principles of the word of God. I don't know. That brings, you said it earlier, consistency and stability. Two of my favorite things. Consistency and stability built on principle. That's where it comes
With
from.
intentionality.
With very much intentionality, yes.
Odette, you're more than welcome to join in on the question I asked Dr. Janine, but I want to pose you a second question or another question. Since you said you were very productive and busy, you didn't really write down things when you were young, but I'm sure we can get some gold there. But the question I want to ask you is, what principles are you instilling in your kids today? When I say principles, I know there's a lot of them, but I want to come to the like quotes, like the principles we're speaking about, not the characteristics and the moral type of stuff. And I mean, you can mention that as well. But like, is there sayings? Maybe that's a better word. Is there sayings that you are dropping? Like Jesus is coming Friday. Like, are there sayings that you are dropping with your kids? But if you want to answer the first one as well, maybe there's more stuff from your dad that you maybe remember that he spoke to you, or maybe somebody else at that
I think
stage.
we need to bring my kids into the conversation so that they can tell you what things I drop, because I'm sure there are things I drop consistently and I just don't specifically pay attention to. I think for me, the biggest thing I try and instill in them is words create worlds. So say what you want, you will have what you say. So no, yes, I agree. You can have that, good or bad, because that's the reality. And I just feel like we don't pay enough attention to that. Something else I am very specific about dropping, and I'm sure there are things that I drop unintentionally, but something I drop very specifically is that you are not of this world. You're not meant to fit in because we live in society that says you have to fit in. We all grew up. And as a teenager, finding yourself, you want to fit in. That's the thing that everyone tells you, you have to fit
Yeah.
in. You can't be strange. You can't be different. You've got it. Your friend is weird. You now also have to be weird. Your friend's got this quirky laugh. Where did that come from? Oh, it's the kid from school. So you are not meant to fit in. God's called you for a purpose. And it is different. And where you are going, they will not be able to come with because we grow up thinking these, and maybe it's true for some people. Let me also preface it. For some people, it is true. Your friends that you had in grade 2, you still have. Excellent. That's not been my experience. My experience has been that I have grown, outgrown, moved on, outlived, outmoved, out many things. And I think we potentially may have had this conversation. You guys are my closest friends at the moment. So at the moment, yes.
At the moment.
I just want to say, can we just stop there? Like, we're going with you. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I've had
Challenge accepted.
I'm gonna grow to stay with you.
Yeah, challenge accepted, Odette. Wrong people to give this challenge to.
People to give the challenge to. But if you think about you were there, both of you have been in my life in some capacity for probably more than 20 years. And you've seen the journey. So you'll know when I say that the friendship group was small, it was very small. And look at where we are now. So just that's the journey. And I want my kids to remember that it's not about numbers. You don't have to have many friends. God just wants you to have deep connections with people. And I think probably the last one I'm quite deliberate on is you control your thinking. And the story we tell ourselves is the most important story we will ever hear or tell. Because I know what the thing is, or I have the experience of telling myself the wrong story, and I've seen the results of that. So when my kids were little, and again, guys, I am very sharp. We've had this conversation. My personality, my daughter will tell you that I am judgmental. Yeah. My pastor will tell you that I see the world in black and white. Yes. So when my kids were little and they had friends that did stuff and they'd come home, and now suddenly my kids have nightmares. They don't watch funny things on TV. They don't read funny. I don't even have weird conversations, but they're having nightmares. And I'm like, wait a minute, what happened here? No, Simon told me this story. I'm like, okay, why are you lending your ears to them? Your ears are not a garbage bin, so why are you lending your ears to them? Number one. Number two, you choose what happens up here. And the sooner you get control over your mind, over your thinking, the sooner you will be victorious in your life. That is not something I can control. I can teach you, I can train you, and I can remind you. But even as a 3-year-old, as a 5-year-old, as a 10-year-old, as a 12-year-old, you are the only person who can control it and who decides what happens. Only you. And the sooner you manage that, the sooner you take responsibility of that, the sooner you will have breakthrough in your life. That one situation was the same.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Listen, this is some deep stuff in relation to, because I mean I've got a little boy now, and so I've become a lot more attentive on what I do because I'm setting the examples. And second is, what type of a person I want him to be. It's not just going to happen. There's things that I have to instill in him. But when I listen to the things that you're teaching your kids, I'm like, yo, this is stuff that's heavy for me. Not that I'm saying that it's too heavy for kids. I think the reason it's maybe hitting so hard is because I know that you live this, and I know that you're so focused and direct on this, and maybe that's why it's hitting me harder. Because I was thinking about, you were saying, friends, influence one another, and they're coming with a funny laugh from schooling, like, where did it come from? You don't have to comment, but I remember the story you told us, me and Pastor Annika, about the carrots from school, Odette. And how quickly they pick up on certain things, But you said this words create your worlds, or words create worlds. And I think that's so powerful, because it hinges on what Dr. Janine earlier said, about what I do today will matter in the hallways of eternity. And the worlds that we create, it's so easy to create a world that's fitting for today and for this day and age in society, and not realizing but that there is a world to come, and there is something that we prepare ourselves for. And not taking it too far, saying that it's eternity, but just thinking about, next month, next year, the next decade, how are we preparing ourselves for that which is to come? Because most people barely have today figured out, nevertheless, the next year, 10, 15 years. And the fact that you are instilling these principles already in your kids would show me the one or two principles that you seemingly remember from your childhood. You are not just doubling down on it, but you are instilling a vocabulary, but you're also instilling a habit and a culture of taking ownership, because your ears are not garbage bins. I heard that famously from Pastor Mavis for many, many, many years. You are not of this world. I think it's so powerful, because society is pushing us towards accepting, so many of these type of things. I wanna pose this, and I wanna say the following, or I wanna ask the following, when it comes to these guiding principles that you are now establishing within your families, and I know Dr. Janine is doing similar, is like, what would be one thing that, if they don't remember anything, just remember this one thing? What would be the one thing that you would want to tell your kids?
Odette, you wrote something down. Was there something you wanted to finish your thought, maybe?
Yes, Dr. J. So there was one more that I tell my kids all the time, and it's, you become what you surround yourself with.
That's a good one.
That's very good.
That's a good one. That's a good one. I like that. I think the one that I speak to my kids about all the time that comes to mind, and it's something maybe it's relevant for them at their age more than anything else. It's exactly what you said. The friends plays a really big role, but you lead by values, not by trends, because they live in a world of trends and everything is trending. And they often ask themselves, am I still trending? What do I need to do to go viral? And unfortunately, that lands them up in dangerous and difficult places and scenarios a lot of the time. So what I try and encourage them with is to lead with values and not with trends. I think what I've changed, and again, a principle taken from my grandmother, she never told me what I was not. She told me what I was. So therefore, when I got to situations, I remembered who I was, and therefore I was able to make a good decision. She didn't say to me, you are just a little teenager that keeps making these mistakes, and you need to make sure that you don't drink and you don't smoke and you don't do this. You never don't. She would say, as an example, just remember, you are a daughter of the Most High God. You are entering into rooms of purpose, and you're going to make an impact where you go. So when you walk into a room where people are smoking, drinking, and doing funny stuff, you're like, "Ooh, wrong room, sorry, close the door, let me just go. This is not where I'm going." So for me, that's also what I mean with leading with values instead of trends. I spoke on yesterday on marketing cosmetics, and I said virality is not the thing you need to focus on, but rather value. And it's the same here. What value are we adding? You as a person, you carry value, no matter who you are, no matter what your age, and you are entering into rooms to add value. Another way that I say it is the fruit that we carry or the fruit that we produce is not for us to eat. It's for those we are called to feed. It's not for us to eat. So we're producing fruit so that we can feed others. So it's not only just for our kids, Pastor C, it's for everyone around us. And if you know who you are, coming back to identity again, and people have spoken your true royal identity over your life, you will close the door on many things because you'll just be like, this is not for me. Oh, I don't fit in. Oh, this is not my people. And you'll press that elevator button and you'll go up. And most likely, you're going to take some people with you as well.
I like this. I really like this. So, Chris is at an interesting stage now where he does funny things when he wants to, not when I ask him to. So he's got some favorite sayings like coffee. Now he's 2 years old and he already knows about a coffee and trapsiki, and he says all these funny words. And the other day, me and him were just taking a stroll in the complex, and there in the distance were a trailer. Somebody hired a trailer, and he immediately said sleepwa. And I'm like, where do you come up with these words? And I realized, okay, he spends time with my father-in-law, and they're always busy with the sleepwa, the trailer. And then I would say to him, say he says, and then he goes like, yeah. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. You gotta be kidding me. The one thing I want you to say. And so I'm at a different place maybe than you guys are at, where I try to focus on certain behaviors and not so much the things that we say, although obviously I know it's important and it needs to go into his ears. And so like one of the things is like that Jordan Peterson said, allow your kids to do dangerous things carefully. And so those are things that I'm very pertinent on, is to, I'm with him, but I allow him to do certain things. And then there are times where I would hide around the corner and let him do something alone to see what he's doing, but also start building within him this ability that you can do things on your own. You don't need mommy and daddy to hover behind you the whole time. And so I'm a lot more focused at this point in time on those behaviors and making sure that I can establish those things. And yes, the principles and the words are also being taught and mentioned in his ears. What do you think? Or because that's something that I wish my dad did do, not just tell me the principles, but made it practical for me to say, okay, we're gonna instill these habits or these activities that's gonna enforce the principle that we are sharing. And so maybe let's share with the audience, one or two things that it's not just about the principles we hear, but how do we establish and create, a culture or an environment where these things are being practiced? It's not just, being taught, it's been practiced. I remember this years ago, Bill Johnson, they asked him, how do you train your church or develop your church, get your church to a place where they can seek and they can get the presence of God, within the building? And he looked at the guy that was asking, he says, we practice it at home. Like it's something we do. It's not something that, and when he said that, I'm like, wow, so it's an outflow of your life. Now, years or decades ago, we would actually, Dr. Nini was speaking about it yesterday, about traditional marketing. It's how people remember traditional marketing and the thing that they got way longer and more intently than digital things that they saw. And for me, it's just because there's so many things that comes across our screen every single day. And, we see it, but don't focus on it. I mean, I look at 100 reels a day, and I can't remember which one I sent to my wife 2 minutes ago because it's just. And so in a world where there's so much we can give them, what would be, once again, coming back to my question, what would be some practical ways that they can implement the principles that you share with them?
I practically, there's a couple of things. In terms of behaviors or things I want them to do, for example, pick up your shoes, take them to your bedroom. If I do it for you, you never learn. I will always be the one. You will always think
Okay.
that magically you leave your shoes there and the tooth fairy or the shoe fairy comes and fetches your shoes and puts it in your bedroom. So my parenting style is different in that I will call you back and I will say, hey, didn't I say you must? Yes, of course I can pick it up. Of course I can do it myself, but you don't learn anything from it. So my philosophy around life is very practical. Like if there's something I want them to do, it's in the moment kind of teaching. I read a book many years ago when my kids were small called Parenting Scripts. And it it encourages parents to think about what are the things you want to say, but not to say it in the moment when you're angry or when they're doing something wrong, rather than to wait until you come and do it, a teaching thing around it. This is what I want you to do. This is how we behave. So I correct my kids in the moment. Like I don't wait till tomorrow. Obviously not in public. I don't embarrass my kids. Well, I try not to, but sometimes, I'm still human. That's the truth. But I do. Like we'll get in the car after church and I'll be like, you did this thing. And actually that's not acceptable. That's and much like Dr. J, she said the other day, there's just some things that she just doesn't do. And her family is always surprised when she goes, no, we don't play that game. We are doing this. And they are just as surprised as I am. And my philosophy around those things are the same. They are just something that I'm like, oh, yes, it's hard. And we're doing that. So practically it's around making sure that they pay attention to the kind of things, because my kids are a lot bigger now. So it's the things you said. Excuse me, correct your words. Or when they are now at the point where they start bickering with each other, which is interesting because my relationship with my husband's not like that. We don't bicker and like, he's not like that. Where did you find this thing that's happening here? I don't know where I've never modeled this. So I invite them to consider their behavior and it really is, I kid you not. The words I use is, I invite you to consider what you're currently doing. Are we negotiating to be grounded? So now they're like, do I want to continue on this path of arguing or wait, the reasoning mind? Do I want to be grounded? And the answer without fail is always no, thank you. We don't wish to be grounded. So I give them an opportunity to verbally say what it is they want. We don't accept silence. I also don't accept this, and you get shrugged their shoulders. Mm-mm. We use our words. Like, no. What?
What about
I
the
don't
I don't
accept that
know
either.
answer?
That I don't accept that.
Neither do I. What happened there?
Yes.
What happened
No.
there? I don't know.
Something that I find hard
Yeah.
but still work on is taking responsibility, because society has indoctrinated the world to say, if you did something wrong, hide it. No. Oh yeah,
Mm.
I stuffed. I'm sorry. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? But somehow, like the world is telling them, if you made a mistake, hide it. Don't say anything. They've got to be so angry. So what if I'm angry? That's like one of the conversations I have with Brianna often. So what if I'm angry? I don't love you any less. Your behavior has triggered something in me. It doesn't say anything about you. Right. And I need you to just own it, because the reality is I don't hit my kids. I don't swear at my kids. I don't throw things at them. Like maybe they'll get grounded. Maybe they'd use their tech. But that's really the worst thing that could happen. So you lose your iPad. Can we get some perspective here? It's not the end of the world. I hope that answers your question.
It does.
You were saying that lately or sometimes now, you let Chris to go around the corner and do his own thing, and then you watch him. I want to speak to somebody that's listening. I felt it in my spirit while you were saying that. You are struggling to hear the voice of God, and you are wondering why. And I'm just telling you this morning, he's let you go around that corner to try that thing, and he's watching you. He's trusting you with your next. It's not that he's not there. It's not that he's supporting you. He's keeping a close eye, but he's trusting you. He's letting you go to try that dangerous thing, but in a good way. So for that person listening today, God is not there. He's hearing you. He's supporting you. In actual fact, what you are feeling is that thrust because of trust. And he's letting you do that thing. And then I want to answer your question.
Oh, yeah, that's powerful. That's very powerful. I wanna just elaborate on that as well. Just in my view is, when I'm looking at my son, I'm not looking what he's doing right. I'm simply observing him, and I find the most joy
Joy.
at what he's busy with. And for that person, it's not even that you have to do something right or perfect for God. He's observing you. He's just watching his child going into the world, exploring. I'm recording some of the stuff because I want to have it as a memory, but then also remind myself, just be in the moment. And I see God the same way, is that in the records of heaven, there is an account taken, but he's also just enjoying his son, his creation, his daughter, that he's allowed to go and explore. And so do it with freedom. I think that's what Dr. Janine is maybe getting to, is that, just go and do it with freedom. Do it afraid. To just go. He is with you. He is there. So I just wanted to affirm that. Powerful, very powerful.
And then, based on your question, while we were talking, I wrote this down because I like to start at the back and then bring it down. Is how do we make living by principle really, really practical for people that are listening? So, what are principles built on? Principles are built on discipline. Discipline is exactly what Odette is saying, that we need to install into our children, in ourselves. I've never seen, or maybe never is not the right word, but if you look at most successful executives, the one thing that they do have is a lot of discipline. If you look at the successful people today, it's discipline that's built into them. It's also determination, right? You have to be determined to stay within the disciplines. You will have success in that, but also responsibility. Like you said, Odette, take the responsibility. Don't blame shift. Don't blame others when you do stuff wrong. Maybe don't really honestly realize that you've done something wrong. Take responsibility anyways and see how you can improve, see how you can change, see how you can do things better. And then just to have that mindset, because that's what I tell my kids when they say it's hard or it's difficult. And I'm like, it's okay. You know how we are. We do hard things. Yes, I'm really struggling with math at the moment. I'm like, it's okay. You're just doing what we always do. We do hard things, and that's what we do. And if you learn hard things, then you push through, you have responsibility, you will experience success. But what you are doing, you installing discipline into your life. I was telling the kids the other day, hey, you guys must download that new app. It's called Discipline. And their faces was priceless. Have you seen it? I'm like, it works on the clock, on the dot, guys. Every time it does the same thing. And they were just like, really? I mean, their faces, really? But that's the thing. Imagine you can take discipline, responsibility, determination, and you can download those apps into your software here in your mind, like Odette says, that control everything. Can you imagine the principles that you would live by and the results and the fruit that you will carry because of it?
Wow. Wow. There's so much food for thought here. Discipline, determination,
Food for
mindset.
thought.
Yeah. Determination, mindset, discipline. I think those are foundational blocks to build this discipline. We have to build the culture within your life on living on principles. Is the behaviors that you model by being verbal, as Odette said, that will set you apart. Odette mentioned something, and I wanna come in for a close on this, where, speaking about your kids, you don't need a lot of friends. I think it was Jordan Peterson that said this as well. He says, if you come to the end of your life and you've got 3 close friends, he says your life is full. Says your life is full. And he says, as a matter of fact, you do not have the time or the capacity to have a meaningful, intentional relationship with more than 3 people, families or whatever the case might be. And think about that, if, there's one thing I definitely want to work on more, is my relationship with my brothers. We don't spend as much time together as that I want to. And it's simply because, you spend time with people that's involved in your life in different areas in business and friends. And then you realize it's not easy to have more than 3, 4 meaningful, knowing what's going on in people's lives type of relationships. But I also want to encourage you, is that I know we've shared a stack load of principles today, but if you can just get 2 or 3 that you're going to hold fast onto, and you're going to stand upon, and you're going to build your life around, you're going to start modeling those principles and the behaviors that come with those principles, with determination, with discipline, I know that your life will be a great success. I know that your life will absolutely change and transform people. And so in closing, Janine, Dr. Janine did say that, this is just what we do. We do hard things. So let me ask you a hard question. What are the principles that you've learned lately that you initially refuse to accept, but later realize I have to because this is what's going to grow me?
I don't know yet how to frame it. Maybe just after our current conversation, I can frame it. That discipline, I wrote it down, is the only app without screen time. But what I can say is that, and that's where I'm struggling to frame it still. But all the stuff that I've scrunned away from in the past is actually the thing that I should have been doing. We had a quick conversation yesterday, Pastor C, and you were saying we spoke about coaching. It's like he fought me for a long time to do that. We spoke about speaking or keynotes. He fought me for a long time to do that. And I realized all the stuff that I pushed back the hardest was actually the thing that I should have been doing already then. So now I'm going back and I'm revisiting what do I keep saying no for? Good things. What is challenging me? What do I keep? And then I was like simply asking myself the other day, where are you making excuses? Go do that thing. It was as simple as that. I was
Wow.
doing a deadlift, which was something I really don't like. And today is one of the things that I love the most when I do exercise. The same with the ropes, we were speaking about that. It's like, I don't do that. I don't like it. It really hurts in the shoulders. Now I purposefully go in and I start with these small things. That's why I'm giving you a gym example. I start with the small things that I don't like, and I go do that thing until I like it. Because 99% of the time, the thing you keep pushing back and the thing you keep ignoring and the thing you keep making excuses for is exactly that thing you should have done. Same with events for me. I didn't want to do keynotes. I didn't want to do events. I didn't want to coach. It's exactly the thing I was pushing away. I was making excuses for. It's exactly the thing I should have been doing. I'm talking about healthy things. I'm not talking about things you should say no for. So
Yeah,
I don't know how to round up that principle yet. But it
very
comes
good.
down to that: do hard things. Go start with where you are making excuses and get into those things.
Thank you very much for that. Odette.
How do I follow that? Are you joking? Come on. Give me something to work with, yeah.
Just
It's
do
a
the hard
hard
thing. Just do
Yes.
it.
I
Dad.
think for me, the thing that's probably been most prevalent, dis nie vir my anyway. That's not for me. I'm antwoord. It's twofold. I think on the one end is I don't have to cut myself into pieces to be pleasing or to fit in. And equally, there's a flip side to that, that there are some things that I can soften on without losing who I am. I will always have a sharp personality. Deal with it. There are things that are black and white in my life, but there are things where maybe my perspective can change, or the way I thought God was going to do something, I can be okay when He does it some other way.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for listening today. Whether you are being stretched to adapt your perspective on how you are in life, or if you're being pushing to do the hard things that you've been put off, I want you to understand one thing. Life is great. We just sometimes seem to miss the great moments. Make today great. We'll see you soon.
And